Welcome to all grade 10 history learners and parents. I hope you find this PowerPoint informative. I always begin at the beginning of the year my history lessons for grade 10 with the following quote: "Unless we know where we come from, we are forever to remain a child." History is there to teach us where we come from and how relevant yesterday is today. It also teaches the students and to develop critical analysis and critical thinking, and not just to accept, but to listen, to think, evaluate, and question. Just some history pictures of what themes we do in history in grade 10. I wonder if you could identify some of the historical periods by the dress of those in the pictures. Content covered in term 1 and 2 would be the period 1600, the great voyages between the 15th and the 18th century, the voyages to India, the voyages to the discovery of America. And today we rather would say America was already there and there were people, so all of that. The French Revolution, most parents, I'm sure you would have touched on this in your schooling career, and this should take you really down memory lane a little bit. The Age of Enlightenment, the age of the philosophers. But let me go back to the French Revolution. I just wish to vindicate poor Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette never said, "Let them eat cake." This was propaganda from the newspaper published by the Enlightenment movement to discredit Queen Marie Antoinette. In the French Revolution as well, you would have learnt about the first, the second, and the third estates, and the great inequalities that existed in the society of the day. The age of violence under Robespierre, the Reign of Terror, and then you would need a Napoleon to come to restore the ideologies and ideas of the French Revolution. In the Age of Enlightenment, I'm sure Jean-Jacques Rousseau comes to mind, and the famous quote of his, "Man is free, but everywhere in chains." I often like using that quote for learners to write a discursive essay on. Napoleon was an interesting person, and the question I often ask learners to think about under Napoleon is the question purely to ask, did he betray the ideologies of the French Revolution? He did take away the rights of women, but he also introduced his own Napoleonic laws, the Napoleonic Code. An interesting aspect of Napoleon, he had a great vision of a united Europe, almost a European Union that we see today. Napoleon also said it wasn't Donald Trump who first spoke about fake news. Napoleon said, "If I allow the newspaper and the media total freedom, I will remain in power for 3 minutes. It is best that I tell them what they should know, and they know what I want them to know." Content that has been and will be covered in term 3 and 4 is mainly South African history. We have covered already South African history, colonial expansion into the interior of South Africa, particularly in the fourth term, the Cape Colony, and slavery brought to the Cape Colony that was very different from the transatlantic slave trade. The Malay slaves that came from Malaysia brought by the Dutch were educated people. These were people that could read and write and invariably came from the royal families of Malaysia. So the Malaysian slave trade is an interesting aspect of slavery at the Cape Colony. The Malay slave trade, the Boer War, now called the South African War, the role of women in the South African War, both indigenous African women and white women. And then, of course, the famous Emily Hobhouse. The role of Africans in the South African War, both used by the British and the Boers, and concentration camps in the South African War. And both again here, the concentration camps both being those of whites, which are well documented. Less well documented were the African people's concentration camps that many were sent to as well. Breakdown of marks and weightings. As you can see, the weightings, formal 25, tests 1, 25, 25, 25, altogether then 100 marks. Term 3, the prelim exam is 75 marks, paper 1 100, paper 2 200, and then your CAS assessment is 100 marks, and the CAS assessment consisting of research tasks as well as formal tests, and which is a combination of topics with a focus on different aspects in history. So 15% for the research topic, 10% gives us 25%. Here a breakdown of the marks for term 1, and then a breakdown for the marks of term 3. Term 3, prelim exam, paper 1 100, paper 2 200, 300, plus what is termed the CAS, 25%, gives us then 100 marks, 400. So 75, 25. Mark breakdown for term 1, and then the breakdown for term 3. The prelim exam, 75%, a research task, 15%, and CAS assessments, tests, and other pieces, 10%. The September exam format. Paper 1 is the essay paper, a discursive essay of roughly between 350 to 450 to 500 words. And in this discursive essay, one expects the learner to be able to have an argument and a counter-argument. If it is this, then what is the other option? An extended piece of writing is really for 30 marks, and for the learner that is not that good at the essay, that in that extended piece of writing, all we are looking for are really just the facts. What we have to know for paper 1 is the 1913 Land Act, the Boer War, the French Revolution, and Napoleonic laws. In paper 2 is a source-based paper, and it is 3 hours. And here the learner has to be able to analyze sources. Is the source relevant? Is the source biased? How helpful is the source? In other words, evaluation of sources. And then ultimately then a source-based essay, a question based on a source and using the sources to construct that essay. This paper is 3 hours long and will consist of the Boer War and the 1913 Land Act.